Rebecca, you want to introduce yourself at all?
Sure. Thanks, everybody. Excited to speak tonight and love your video, Kalia. So I'm the equine and farm manager here at Ledyard Farms. We're located in King Ferry, New York. We own about 55 Morgan horses, and we're excited to talk about our program and our horse breeding.
Okay, so we have some questions for you before we open up to a Q&A. And our first question is, how did you get started with Morgan?
So I've done Morgans my whole life. When I was a little kid, like I said, I had two favorite animals. They were horses and unicorns, and wanted to start taking riding lessons. I started in '93, so I was about 8 years old, and the farm down the road was a Morgan horse breeding farm. So I started at Broadfields Highover Morgans. It's in Elliott, Maine, and they're still breeding and showing horses today. I'm sure quite a few people have heard from them. And I started there just because there were horses. I didn't know anything particularly about Morgans or saddle seat horses or anything like that, but it was the closest place to take lessons, and never went back. And I've been in Morgans ever since then.
Awesome. I started there too. What was your involvement in the programs in the past?
So when I was a teenager and a youth rider, I showed Morgans on the A circuit, but I was also particularly involved in the American Morgan Horse Association's Youth of the Year contest, as I know Clea is as well, and she's done, well, and Nicole is, and has done most of her life. So if you're not familiar with it, it's been a part of the AMHA youth program for a long time, where you do a test and a speech and a pattern and judge a class. So it's very different than just showing your horse in the ring and having it be about the horse. It was a lot, very much about your overall horsemanship knowledge, and that's where I started learning about judging and conformation and even some things about horse breeding and that sort of thing. So I was on the New England circuit, and when I was a junior, I was the Maine Youth of the Year, and when I competed as a senior, I got to twice be the New England Regional Youth of the Year and represent New England at the World Championships. So that was great, and it was definitely one of my favorite parts of showing was the youth contests.
Awesome. It's a great program and really good for what you're doing, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
So how did you get your start?
So as I stated before, I'm from Maine, and I came out to New York here to go to Wells College, which is a college here in Aurora, New York. And when I first moved out here, I wanted to take my Morgan with me, but there were no Morgan farms right around here when I was looking at the time. But what I didn't know is that the Haynes family, which has had a farm for about 3 generations here in King Ferry, New York, was renovating their family farm, which it had cows and chickens and some horses over the years, but really taking off with the Morgan breeding program. So after graduating from Wells, I was working in the area at Wells College, and I just drove by and saw a sign that said Morgan show horses, and I started cleaning stalls 2 days a week. I just wanted to be around Morgans. I'd been in horses the whole time, but I'd specifically gotten out of Morgans for a little bit. And 2 days a week turned into some horses that needed to be started, both riding and driving, and I could do that. And I was part-time, then I was full-time, and I got to be the assistant equine manager and then the equine manager. So I've been at Ledyard almost 9 years now. And I just luckily moved down the road from this farm and went to a college, which was right around the corner from here.
Awesome. Lucky situation for sure. What was the original vision for the breeding program, and what lines were your foundation?
So when the original breeding program was started, the owner of Ledyard Farms is Bill Haynes, and when he was getting into Morgans, from the beginning, we both agreed how important the mare is in your breeding program. So there's a lot of amazing stallions out there, but our program has always had a really strong focus on the brood mare. And what Bill's plan was from the very beginning, and we're still doing today, is we picked a lot of mares who were not necessarily proven brood mares. Very few of the brood mares at Ledyard Farms have had foals other than at Ledyard Farms. There's maybe 2 or 3 of them in the last 9 years that were ever brood mares before they came here. Our brood mare stock and our band is made up of mares that the farm purchased as young horses. And we showed them as 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds and really got a chance to judge them for themselves. And maybe we sold them on the show circuit, or maybe we said, that's what we want back here at Ledyard Farms. And they all had wonderful bloodlines, of course, but that mare actually proving herself and doing something. So about the time that they're no longer a junior horse, they're ended their 4-year-old year, we would say, that's a horse we want back here. And a lot of our original broodmare band was made up of our show horses that were really what we were looking in mares, because that's been a big part of our focus.
That's an awesome foundation. What horses size your current breeding stock?
So our horses are, there's a lot of bloodlines that we've worked really closely with, and they've come from that original group of mares and so many of the trainers that we've worked with. So we have horses at Ledyard Farms. They're born and raised here. We start them driving, and then we sent them out to be shown and polished and trained by who we consider to be some of the best trainers in the country. So we're able to work with Broadmoor, and of course with doing that, we've worked quite a bit with Astronomically, and we were some of the first breedings to Astronomically, and obviously he's become an incredibly successful horse. So both our brood mares that are here at Ledyard and horses that we breed to continue to be Astronomically. And we have had a close relationship with Lynn Peoples, and both Lynn Peoples and Waterford over the years. So some of those lines came in from originally from Town Assets and the Man in Motion lines. So our current, I don't know if you want me to list all of our brood mares, but kind of our, I guess maybe some of my favorite brood mares. We do have 3 brood mares at Ledyard Farms who this past fall got inducted into the Broodmare Hall of Fame, which we were really excited about. To be in the Hall of Fame, if you don't know, you have to have at least 3 offspring who have become world champions. So for us, it was FRF Stolen Moment. She's a daughter of Cedar Creek Harlequin, and she was one of the few mares that we purchased at Ledyard when she already was a brood mare, and we just really hoping to have her on our breeding circuit for a while. We also have Greywood's Epona, who's by Spice of Life, Right Answer, who's in the Broodmare Hall of Fame, and then our third, who I don't tell the horses I have a favorite, but maybe I have a favorite. Our third in the Broodmare Hall of Fame is Dutchmoor's Joy, and she's by Astronomically. And we also have some Man in Motion daughters from Lynn Peoples, LPS Out of Bounds and LPS Endless Love. So we've kind of taken these different bloodlines and seen how they all work together. And if you've ever bred horses, you know, you can have 2 siblings that look absolutely nothing apart, and repeating bloodlines, you know, doesn't mean anything. Some of our other stock, we have some Mizrahi brood mares. We have Master's Touch, Belle Flare. So both, I guess, some of the horses of our current generation, and kind of the generation before that a little bit, and the ones that we thought have been successful stallions and have produced these mares that we want to continue lines with. So we have 11 brood mares here at Ledyard Farms that we currently work with, trying to get 7 to 10 foals per year. We'll pick specific years that a mare takes a year off because she had a foal a lot of years in a row. We had as many as 12 foals, and that was a lot. We joked we wanted 8 and we got 12 because we were really lucky, and it was just a great year, and that they all ended up, you know, growing up was great. So those are some of the mares that we have here. It's also been really exciting. We've gotten to be able to take some of our mares that were born and raised at Ledyard Farms, and they went off and they were show horses, and we got to bring them back and put them in the breeding program. So for example, Ledyard Octavia, who's a daughter of FRF Stolen Moment, and she's by Astronomically, born, raised here, was world champion mare, and now is part of the broodmare band. So we've got Ledyard Octavia, Ledyard Ophelia, some of our own mares coming back to be in the broodmare band has been really exciting too.
Awesome. So what traits do you look for in like complementary and choosing a breeding pair?
So when we're looking at mares and stallions, like I said before, I think so much of it comes from the mare. I don't think anyone should assume there's some gorgeous, wonderful stallions out there, and the foal is a huge product of what the mare produces as well. So when we're looking through them, it's a little bit of what's our favorite part of this mare, and if we could improve something about this mare, what might it be? So we've had the wonderful chance of having bred so many horses, knowing not only what does that stallion look like in the picture, but what have we consistently seen, that stallion seems to throw height, really distance, or improve the box of most of his offspring, because there are definitely characteristics that stallions stamp on mares. So looking at that mare and saying, we obviously start with a mare that we like most of the traits about, but what would we do? What would we improve if we could, and which stallions? Just the history is really helpful. You can look at a picture of them and not know that that neck's going to be on all of their foals, or what it is. And both our experience and other people's experience. If there's a horse I really like, we're pulling out the paperwork and we're looking at them and saying, how did that horse get there? What were their bloodlines? Do we have any similar crosses of successes that other people have had? Because you can definitely learn a lot from that.
I find that stuff so cool. It's really interesting for sure. Have you guys had a lot of success with embryo transfer?
I think we have been pretty successful with embryo transfers. So we started, I would say 5 years ago, we started with embryo transfers. And just for people that aren't really familiar with them at all, there's a number of reasons that people do embryo transfers. So if you have no idea what embryo transfers is, think of it as like having a surrogate mom. So you're breeding your original mare, your donor mare as we call her. You're flushing that embryo when it's only 8 days old. It's so tiny that it can still be transported and put into another mare that we call a reset mare, but maybe the more common term would be a surrogate mare. And then having that surrogate mare carry the baby to term and deliver it and raise it as her own. And we've decided to do that with a few of our mares, specifically the ones that are in the AMHA Hall of Fame. Some of the reasons that we've done it is just the mare is older in age. Most of the reasons is to protect that original donor mare. So if that mare had some health issues, or that mare is, as I said, getting older in age, it's also given us the ability to have more than one foal out of that mare. I say out of, but it's not actually out of the mare at that point. It's genetically out of the mare in 1 year. So of course, you normally have about a 330-day gestation period, 11 months. You're only going to get one foal a year out of a mare. So that's given us the opportunity. We had a year where we had 2 Dutchmore Joys foals. We had 2 Grey Winnipona foals, which was really exciting because you're limited to how many babies you're ever going to get out of a brood mare. So we have had success with it. We've also found, by we, I mean Ledyard Farms, and we work really closely with an amazing team of veterinarians. Specifically, Dr. Chris Weiser is everything we know about horse breeding. She's been an amazing resource for us and horses, and we've done a lot of this together. And the less you change and do and manipulate, usually the more success you have. So I'm sure people have heard about embryo transfers where you ship them across the country to put them in a donor mare, and they absolutely work. But every extra step you take, you're probably lowering your chances of success. So we found flushing an embryo from one donor mare and immediately putting it into a reset mare is just really gonna, increase your chances of success, obviously. So I know there's lots of other ways to do it and people have had success, but we choose to do it in the simplest way possible. And I think we've had probably 8 or 9 foals now successfully through embryo transfers. So we're going to continue to do that with our older mares, mostly for their safety.
That's really cool. What part of your job do you love the most?
I think I love that it's a never changing process. There's so much to it that it's everything from you're starting with a piece of paper and some ideas and you're looking at bloodlines and you have these, this would be so cool, let's try it. And I think it's from that stage to like 4 years later and there's a junior exhibitor riding that idea, winning a world championship. It's the process, and it's a long process from coming up with that idea to the breeding. It's a long time until the delivery. It's a long time till that horse is ridden and getting into, the home of an amateur or junior exhibitor. So I think it's seeing that end and seeing that success and then remembering it when you're, you haven't slept in 3 days because you've been on full watch and you just want to go to bed and thinking about, it's not about right now, it's the whole thing, and being able to see those results is definitely the most rewarding. And I just like them more, just like full handling them and being around them. So that's a great part about it.
So building on that, what has been the moments that have like highlighted your career at Ledyard?
I think it's probably when, to get more specific, when some of the tough ones work out. You know, there's nothing really easy about breeding and raising young horses and that kind of thing, but it's specifically that foal that maybe needed to be bottle fed, or, you know, something like that. And I guess just to be more specific, one of my favorite Ledyard horses of all time was Ledyard Mysterious Prince. So he's a Crown Prince son, and he was the first baby that Dutchmore Joy ever had. So I was so excited when Dutchmore Joy came back to Ledyard Farm. She was the reserve world champion 4-year-old with Mike Go Big. Just so excited when she had her first baby. And he was sitting in his stall, and we're actually watching him through the bars, and he's being a baby horse, and he starts choking on mom's poop. You know, the totally not romantic things that when you think about these world champions, you know, they should never do that, right? So we end up taking him to Cornell. He's aspirated a little bit of it, you know, all this extra care. You're staying up all night with them, and he was absolutely totally fine, and no repercussions, of course, whatsoever with that. But in the moment when you haven't slept in 2 days, and you're like, I hope you turn out to be something, you little booger, you know. And then he went on to be the unanimous 2-year-old park harness world champion. And, you know, those are the ones that you remember forever. And you're like, not that I wouldn't stay up at night for any of them, but you just really proud of when they turn out the way that you hope that they would. And you get to see those really big highlights like that.
That's got to be so rewarding. So what would you suggest interested in getting involved in breeding should do to further themselves down that path?
So I think that anybody, you know, particularly youth that are looking at breeding horses, I think one of the most useful things that I did as a youth was judging horses. So I never became a rated judge or anything, but anyone that's involved in the youth contest knows that that's a portion of it, because there are things about horses that we love, and you can say, look at that horse, it's so beautiful, but you really need the ability and both the vocabulary and the knowledge to say why. Oh, I like that horse's top line. I like this type of body. I like, what is it that it is? And the judging in the Youth of the Year contest was really useful to give me some of those words to describe. If I put these two horses together, you know, what am I trying to get? So I would definitely recommend that. And then, I mean, just get involved. I think that most youth now are riding at lesson barns and show barns, and there's not necessarily a lot of actual breeding going on at those farms, whether it's the ability to work with young horses or look at the process, or ever see a foal, you know, born or something like that. So finding those breeding farms, and if they're a responsible youth that can stay awake at night and we can stick them on full watch, I promise you that they'd be happy to have you, and you'd get to learn so much about the process, and see if that's something that you're really interested in.
I'm up for it.
Oh, you come on down. You definitely have a spot here. About February, I need a week off. So.
All right. So we know you've done some jousting. How did you get involved in that, and how do you recommend other people pursue it?
So I pulled up a couple pictures just because I kind of had the assumption that people might not know what jousting was. So if you're able to see, I've had 3 jousting Morgans. And it has nothing to do with the breeding manager. But as I said, I grew up in Maine, and I was working at Meneman Morgan's, which is in Lebanon, Maine. And it's very close to where the Maine Renaissance Fair is. So if you're not familiar with jousting, it's mostly done now at Renaissance fairs. It's not a mainstream sport as maybe it once was, but I was working up there in Maine when a joust company came in and was looking for a really strong, brave, fast horse, you know, just not afraid of anything. And turns out Morgans are actually pretty good at it. It might be smaller than people think when you think of a war horse in your mind. So when that horse was sold, his name was Menemen Mr. Yankee. When we sold that horse to the joust company, I was a theater major at the time, so all that was right up my alley. And I jokingly said, I don't know what jousting is, but I think I can do it. And I come with the horse. And I jousted professionally for 12 years. So we toured around to Renaissance fairs and state fairs and colleges and that sort of thing. And that one Morgan that started in the company jousted for the whole 12 years. We ended up buying 2 more Morgans that both jousted. So there were 3 of them over the course of time. And then in the end, I ended up with that Morgan who's now 25 years old. He's working down the road from me in a therapy riding program, because once you joust, a horse is jousted, it's not afraid of anything. It's the most bomb-proof Morgan. But he started his life as a show horse with Harry Sebring. So show horse, English pleasure horse, to joust horse, to therapy horse. And if he's not an example of Morgans can do anything, I don't know what it is. And if you want to get in jousting, to finish your question, I guess I would say it's hard to start on your own. I would definitely find who's jousting at your closest Renaissance fair, and if you can ride, they would be very interested in teaching you to joust if you do some shows for them. Because a lot of actors that want to joust, but obviously we're coming from the horse world, and if you're a good rider, they'd probably be pretty interested in teaching you to joust, and as an exchange, you joust in some of their shows.
That sounds so fun. That's so cool how you have that Morgan story all in it too.
Yeah.
So what's your future, both you and Ledyard?
So at Ledyard, we're really focusing in on, the type of horses that we want to continue to produce. So we want to continue to produce with a goal of English pleasure and park horses. But if you produce a quality horse where your conformation is sound and they're pleasant and people like to be around them, they can really excel in a lot of other divisions, which were not our original intent for them. But, for example, Ledyard Perfect Manhattan has been the 6-time world champion in different hunter categories. And we didn't go out of our way to say we want to breed a hunter, but we wanted to breed a trainable, pleasant horse with amazing conformation that could win a world championship on the hunter level, even with a junior exhibitor, rider. So we're continuing on just making a really quality horse that could excel in a lot of divisions. We remain small, 8 to 10 horses a year, really focusing on what we're doing. And even in the last 9 years, we've looked through those brood mares and been very, very picky. You really have to be one of the top brood mares in the country to stay in Ledyard's breeding program, and narrowed that group down. And as I said, now we've come up with 11 just really amazing brood mares every year. So and I guess for myself, we love to try new avenues, both with our breeding and trying new horses. We've done a lot of town assets, our own stallion, of course, Man in Black, astronomically, but we're trying new stallions all the time. And vision is one of the things we're very successful for. They're 4 and 5 years old, very often showing with youth riders and successful on a national level. So for us, it's been, how do you take those babies and just handle them and start them from the beginning in a way that they're so nice to be around. A lot of people describe Ledyard horses as friendly or even goofy, that they're fun to be with, but then they turn it on and they go in the show ring and they compete completely on a very professional level. But I think part of what people like and part of our vision has been for the party family, and they can do all those things. And I'm laughing a little at Clea because she has a Ledyard horse right now who does face painting at a summer camp and then turns around and thinks she's a park horse and with the saddlebreds. And that's exactly what my vision has been and what's Ledyard's vision has been. I think that's part of the reason that people enjoy them so much. You can be competitive, but they're on your Christmas cards. I just saw a baby announcement with a Ledyard, horse holding up, I have a little brother coming. It's that sort of thing that we really love and people are enjoying. And that's just what we want to continue to do.
That's a great vision. You guys are doing a good job, I know, firsthand. So open up questions. Since we didn't give anyone time to ask, I have one, but I've lost my mind because that was so funny. So I'm just gonna wait and see. What you guys think? Like, what are you wondering? What do you want to ask her?
Sure, I answered everything anyone could ever think of, so there's no questions.
There's got to be some.
Somewhere.
I guess I'll start. Do you guys have any exciting young horses this year that you're excited to see at Grand National?
Definitely. So with everything that happened with COVID and the world this year, Ledyard decided that we're personally not taking any horses to the World Championships, but we have some 2-year-olds that already people have purchased from us that we're really excited about. So I have to go through and see if they're all entered and everything, and not to, let the cat out of the bag. But I was talking about that horse previously, Ledyard Mysterious Prince, who is one of my favorites of all time. So he was Crown Prince and Dutchmore's Joy. Well, this year, as a 2-year-old, we have a full sibling who might even be better than he was. So I think they were just these been purchased by a different group, and they're deciding whether that horse wants to be in the Park division or the English Pleasure division. But you should see the staff glued to the TV when the Ledyard horses are on. That even if we don't own them anymore, we still want to watch. So that's one of our 2-year-olds that is out there. Clea Cloutier will be riding a Ledyard Farms horse at the World Championships this year, and we've got her whole class list, and we're super excited to watch Clea on Tiger Lily. That's my plug for you, which will be really amazing. So it's a lot of new owners on Ledyard horses that this might be their debut. We have another Dutchmore's Joy 2-year-old, which will probably be at the World Championships, who's by our stallion, Man in Black. So those 2 Dutchmore Joys are the 2 that I'm really excited about seeing in the 2-year-old driving divisions.
That's awesome. It's so exciting. Well, give everyone another second to ask questions, but I guess if we don't have any.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Do you have any horses that you have been really surprised about how they've turned out?
That's a great question. I think we've learned so much. So I've been here 9 years. I think in the 9 years we have learned so much about judging horses. So these horses are born and you're trying to put prices and values on them. And by the time a horse is born, it's usually about time to rebreed the mare again. So you're also saying, did we love this cross? And you're looking at this, 3-week-old little foal trying to say, well, I don't know. I can't really tell yet. And there have been some in the beginning that, to be honest, I think they outdid themselves. There's never really been a time that we looked at a horse and said, oh, I think this horse is amazing, and then it wasn't. Very lucky for us, it's been in the other direction where I thought this would be a great horse. We didn't know it was going to be, a world champion by the time it was 2. And I think we've really improved at Ledyard at evaluating them at a young age and knowing what they're going to be. We jokingly say, look at them at 3 months old, and then don't look at them again until they're 2, because there can be a lot of growth periods along the way. If I just sent someone a picture, they'd say, oh, I thought you said this horse was the next world champion. And I was like, well, not right now with its winter coat and its fat belly and its whatever. So we say 3 months old, look at it then, take that snapshot in your mind. But there have been some that surprise us. Luckily, always in a good way. Very rarely did we say, this horse is awesome, and then it wasn't. But at the same time, I think we've also defined, like what is awesome, whether we're looking for world champion park show horses, but a horse that's gorgeous, but just its temperament and its way of going. A woman bought one of our horses, Ledyard Gabriella, and I hear she's a phenomenal fox hunter. And to that woman, this is the best horse, and it's the prettiest fox hunting horse out there. So, as long as they're quality horses to start with, they probably have some job, and if they were started right, a chance of being really awesome to somebody, even if it doesn't mean showing in that Morgan show circuit.
That's awesome. And also, if anyone wants to ask a question but they don't want to talk, you guys can use the group chat and I'll say the questions for you. Do we have any other questions?
I do. I have another one.
Okay.
What horse has been your horse throughout a very long time?
So probably my heart horse is that Meneman Mr. Yankee that I talked about. So he's one that I personally own, that I said started by Harry Sebring, and then he was a joust horse, and then he's 25 now. So I guess I've been with him since 2003. So obviously he's not a horse that's a part of our breeding program in any way. He's a gelding, but just for my heart, Morgan, it would probably call him Mr. Mister. It'd probably be Mr. Mister because we've been together 17 years and he's kind of done a little bit of everything, and he lives here on the breeding farm and thinks he's a breeding stallion, but he's not. He's just hanging out. So
I have another question in the chat. It's how do you guys come up with the names for your horses?
So it's a fun process. If you know us on a little bit more of a personal level, or you have a Ledyard horse, you probably know that their barn names go through the alphabet one letter at a time every year. And in 2011, we started with the Ledyard L. So a lot of people probably know Ledyard Lucky Lucas. He was from the L year. His barn name was Lucas, and his show name is Ledyard Lucky Lucas. He was the junior world champion stallion when he was only 2, I think, and then the reserve world champion stallion. So we go down and we have a letter every year, which is both really fun and really challenging, but it does help us to go back and say, okay, that horse's name starts with an R, and even though I think there's probably about 115 Ledyard horses out there that have been bred, over the last about 12 years, you can just go, it's an R, it's a 3-year-old, and go with that. So the barn names are very much a staff vote, and we love to think all year long. We're like, okay, this year we just did letter U, and tell you what, that was a challenge, but all year round, people were thinking about names and writing them down. We have Umbi, Uno, Urban, Unagi, Ula, to come up with a bunch of U names that are fun. And then the owners of Ledyard Farms and the staff sit down to look up the show names. And we love, with our Man in Black offspring, to stick with Johnny Cash songs. But tell you what, Johnny Cash songs with a U in it continue to be a challenge. And we just finished our list to register the foals that we have now. Got to be by Johnny Cash, got to have a U in it. It's just a fun process to do with it, but that's how we come up with them.
Awesome. Any other questions?
I have a question. Have you ever had any success other than Ledyard Perfect Manhattan? Because I know that he's a big deal in the hunter divisions. Have you ever had any other successful hunter horses?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'd say that Ledyard Perfect Manhattan was probably our first really successful horse in the hunter ring. One of the ones who had a great year last year and then didn't show much this year. We'll just skip this year in the scheme of a lot of things in show worlds. Is Ledyard Ring of Fire. So she's by Man in Black, and she actually has the same mom as Ledyard Perfect Manhattan. His barn name is Neptune. So we call this filly Pepper. And she came out as a hunter from day one, where Ledyard Perfect Manhattan drove as a 2-year-old and that kind of thing. Pepper did show as a 2-year-old herself, but she's a hunter that we're really looking forward to. Not a ton of hunters, but the ones that we have look like they're working out really well.
That's awesome. We have another question in the group chat. It's, what is your dream cross?
Ooh. All right, here's my dream specific horses. So as you know, one of our most famous brood mares, we have both Bunny, and now her daughter is at Ledyard Farms in our brood mare band, Ledyard Octavia, who is world champion mare. So it's exciting to have them both here. I have been a huge fan, as I'm sure everyone is, the last couple years of Carol Dawson. So just a really cool mare, and you think that'd be exciting in all the good and the bad ways to have something like Carol Dawson. And Carol Dawson is a granddaughter of Bunny. So looking to cross, I think, some of those lines again. So with that Harlequin and maybe a Ledyard Octavia with Crown Prince. Oftentimes, some of our breedings come from looking at other examples that worked out really well. don't want to say we want to make our own Carol Dawson, but that's one that I've always just been really excited about trying. We might do someday.
Hey, making your own Carol Dawson would not be bad.
I know, sure. Right? Right. I hope my Go Big will be ready to ride her in the next 5 years from now, but we'll see.
It'd be awesome if you guys could get her. So, what do you look for in a broodmare?
I think what's interesting about Ledyard is our broodmares don't have a specific type. Like, you wouldn't look at them and say they're so I think it just kind of says we're looking for a lot of different things. So as I said before, we prefer to use horses that themselves have been very, very successful in the show ring, because other than looking at them, you can find so much about their energy, their heart, their stamina, and they're willing to work, and the way that they move, which are all really important things for us. You can't fix a neck. We really like, long necks that come really high out of the shoulders. I think we have a very pretty set of heads in our barn. I think every single broodmare, I think if you passed on that head, we'd be really excited. Really like big eyes and just really expressive faces. And as I was saying, judging them as show horses, their attitude and characteristics are going to play a big part in both the foal and them raising the foal. Without a doubt, some of their attitude and mannerisms and whatnot are going to pass on to the foal. So that's definitely something we also consider when we're looking at broodmares.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Any more questions?
I have one. How easy was it to get started into the breeding process?
So for me personally, I came to Ledyard Farms to be a horse trainer. I was cleaning stalls and doing things like that, and I was here to train horses. And I didn't know enough about breeding at all. I'd been at, as I said, Broadfield's High River Morgan's, which was a breeding farm. But it was just around me. I couldn't have any real qualifications to do that. So when I'd come here, Ledyard had been breeding horses for about 4 or 5 years on a little bit of a smaller scale, and they had some really nice broodmares and other ones we were looking to switch out. So for me, it was learn as you go, and working with a veterinarian that is willing to help you and coach you along. So many decisions to make, but if you have that veterinarian to say, you could do this, you could do this, you can do this. So often in breeding, there's not the right answer, but what's the right answer for this farm, for this situation? So, someone that's looking to start and they don't have a place like Ledyard Farms, I would just say starting small and connecting with a vet that can really help you with that is a huge part of the process, because you might know so much about Morgans and bloodlines and even training and handling young foals. But I know a lot of people that start and go many, many years where things aren't working out with their mare before they get that foal on the ground, and a lot of that can come from the really good help of a veterinarian.
Definitely such an important part of our industry. We have one more question. Does Ledyard have an apprentice program?
So we do quite a bit of internships. They're usually affiliated with colleges, people that are either equine studies majors or something like that. If it's someone at a local school, we love to bring you on during foal watch. We did one with a Wells College intern this past year who stayed on after she graduated to be a full-time employee. But we'd be happy to talk to people that are looking, whether you're just available for the summer because you're in school, or you're able to do a more in-depth internship where you can be through our full watch period. We usually do about one at a time, so we're a little selective in all of that, but we do love to work with people, and quite a few of them have come back and continued to work with us here at Ledyard.
That's awesome. Any more questions? Give me a second. Well, that's it. Thank you so much for coming on tonight. This is awesome. It's really important information. I'm excited just getting to know what you do there. Knowing the Ledyard horses are really, really great. And you guys put so much effort into it, and it's really cool. So thank you, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this, and have a good night.
Thank you, Clea. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Becca. That was great.
Thanks.